Zach, welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, man. It's good to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you here, and I'm excited to hear your story, how you got started in real estate, house hacking, some student rentals we'll talk about. But first, let's get a good backstory for you, and what's like your history, and how did you get to where you are now?
Sure. Let's see. I guess some quick info about me. I'm 33. I'm married with 2 kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I'm a software engineer full-time for W2, and I also do real estate investing on the side. We've got 4 properties now. 3 of them are student rentals. I think a couple Airbnbs currently running in pieces of those. I think that's probably about it. 21 leases because we do rent by the room. So there's a lot of work that goes into that.
4 properties and 21 leases. That's a lot. How do you juggle that?
It's not too bad. I have my wife help me out a lot with it. She does a lot of the real estate stuff and a lot of the management pieces for it. And that helps out on taxes. We'll get into that later. It's a good point.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So we're going to go over a 2-year plan that you've kind of come up for how to retire with real estate investing. Where would you recommend someone start with that?
Yes. Okay. So we've come up with a plan where you can retire in 2 years to be, I guess, financially independent and retire if you like. If you're like a fire person or you're familiar with fire, it's similar to that. But it's specifically with house hacking because it's how we've done it. Now that we're on year 3, we could have retired at the start of, I guess, year 2 doing it. We kind of chose not to because we have some bigger expenses that we chose to have. Like I drive a Tesla and I enjoy it. We have our kids in a nice private school and we like them being there. So that costs a little more. We also live in a nice townhome now. So we kind of have, I guess, an elevated lifestyle that we prefer. But we could retire if we wanted to, put that all aside. So that's kind of the choices and balances that we've made. Starting for that. So step 1, I guess, would be, if you want to do your 2-year plan, is you got to have the mindset right. Right. You got to understand that it's a lot of hard work and that there are a lot of financial sacrifices and you got to cut spending and you've got to budget well if you want to make this work, especially doing it in 2 years, which is really fast for a lot of people. You also have to determine, like if you're familiar with fire, what your fire number is. So sort of what the cost of your lifestyle currently is per month. So you've got to figure out how much passive income do I need to be making to be able to retire. Usually like food and housing expenses and all that, and maybe your car payment if you have one, but try and get that as small as possible. Like reduce all of your living expenses as small as possible.
Do you have any tips on how to do that? Like to be really good at budgeting and minimize everything that you spend?
There was an app that my wife uses for budgeting where you put all of your expenses in there and you can go look at like your card payments and stuff and look at that and see what you spent.
Is it Mint? Is it?
I think I don't know if it is Mint.
I use Mint and it helps out really well.
Oh yeah.
And it'll track all your debit and credit card expenses and everything.
Yeah.
And it's really helpful to track it basically.
It gives you like the pie chart to show you what sections are being
it does have the pie chart. Yeah,
exactly. So we did that for the first time. And we discovered we were spending ridiculous amounts of money on fast food. As most people find out, like once you start actually writing down your budget, you find out you're spending way too much. And that we cut that, I think we were spending like $500 or $600 on fast food only, not even just groceries.
Yeah, wow. That's
just fast food. Yeah. And you don't even know you're doing it. Like, yeah. So we started budgeting, that kind of blew us away. And then we started reducing like our food expenses, doing groceries and things like that. And then planning out meals and stuff. We used an app called eMeals, which is like, I think $5 or $6 a month. But they'll give you recipes that you can use. So the hardest part of like budgeting food is like, oh, I can't think of what to make. I can't think of what to cook. Well, they pick out the recipes for you. And then you're able to just pitch that over into the Walmart app and it just makes the shopping list for you. And then send it, pick it up from Walmart. You never have to walk through the store. Oh, it's amazing. Saves so much time.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely try that out because that's the biggest thing for me is what do I eat? Because I can budget well, but now I have to decide what I want to eat on this budget. So it's hard. It's like ends up just being pasta and chicken, rice, and veggies every single time. And it's like, I need to get some variation here.
Yeah, that makes sense. They've got a lot of good stuff on there. Some of the recipes aren't that great, but it's good to try them out. And some of them are amazing. Like, and you make them once and you're like, I'm going to make this every week now. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the last part of step 1 for that mindset is get that goal focus. Like, you've got to know what your goal is and why you're doing it. My goal personally for wanting to retire early was that I wanted to make my own video games. I guess it's
Okay.
kind of a nerdy thing, but I didn't have enough time to do that because it takes a lot of time
Yeah.
to program a video game, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like with a full-time W-2 job, I don't have enough time to do that. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was sort of my goal.
Where are you on reaching that goal? Have you started the like scheming this video game?
Ooh,
Or?
I've been playing with Unreal Engine recently, and I just ordered a new computer that I actually
Mhm.
got from paying myself for cleaning my Airbnbs for the past couple of months.
There you go.
Oh man, yeah. So that could be another story. But yeah, I ordered that. When that gets here, I'm going to be really excited to start working on a project. So,
Okay, that's exciting. All right, so did this take us to step 2 now?
yes. So step 2 is to find your lender and / loan officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I have used the recommended lender that my agents recommended, my buyer's agent, for the past couple of purchases. And so I've tried 3 or 4 different lenders. I went out and found my own once because I called a bunch of different lenders and different loan officers to see who had the best rates at the time. So I've
Mm-hmm.
got like a lender who is specifically the best rate for conventional loans, really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can beat it. It's so much better than anybody else. And then I've got
Mm-hmm.
another lender who's really good at specific like investor properties, different things like that.
Yeah.
And then we had that other lender, Jeremy, who was with us at a
Yes.
house hacker meetup. Yeah, he had like a special like partner product with Macu that he
Yeah.
was able to do like 10% down on an investment loan. I heard they
Mm-hmm.
recently finished doing that and they're not doing it anymore, which is sad.
Yeah,
But
that was like last week that they ended that too,
I
or last week or
know I
something.
was so bummed to hear it. Yeah. Yeah, so finding the loan officer is a big deal, and also finding one that's investor friendly. You need somebody who is comfortable with you asking questions about how to do things, what kind of things that you can get away with, how fast or how long you have to wait before you have to buy another house. Like, how do I follow all the Fannie Freddie rules without breaking them,
Yes.
but make sure that I can do this fast, right?
What are
Yeah.
some of those, like how long would someone have to wait, and what are some of the rules that they would have to follow?
Yes, that's one of the big things about why this takes 2 years is that normally when you do an owner-occupied property, owner-occupied loan, sorry, owner-occupied loans are generally better because they have lower down payments and most likely better rates. You agree to stay in that property for a year. You sign the document when you do the loan that you intend to live in it for a year. And so that's why you're kind of only doing one owner-occupied property every year. That's the idea here. Yeah, so you want to find a loan officer that's good with you asking questions and you basically being an investor. Like, you're in for the income, right? But this is still your primary residence.
Yeah.
I had the loan officer that I talked about that had the best rate. As soon as I started asking questions about, can I afford to do this? Can I rent out this part and afford to do that? He just ghosted me. He was like, this is just too much risk. All I'm looking for is homeowners. All I'm looking for is just people that are going to buy a home and live in it, and that's it.
And each like loan officer and even real estate agents have their own niche of what they want to focus on. So you have to find a real estate agent and a loan officer that focuses on investors and house hackers because they're ready for those questions and they already know those answers. So it's a lot easier conversation that you'll have to go through.
Yep, exactly. The one we found, his name is Randy. We've been working with him for the past like 2-3 years now. He is amazing. Like, because he loves to hear all the creative, ridiculous strategies I come up with to make like the income ratio work and to make everything like fit in the box. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. So it's been fun. And then he had a unique property that really helped me. Well, our unique aspects of his experience is that he had the ear of his underwriter at his company, where he could go to the underwriter and ask her any questions. And the underwriter was comfortable answering any questions to make sure that we did it right. And that was a big point because a lot of underwriters really don't want to answer questions. They think, oh, you're trying to do something illegal. But the point was we were trying to make sure everything was legal and by the book. Yeah. So that was good there. That's why I always use Randy, because he's always got that I guess person in his back pocket where he can ask them questions and get the knowledge. Because most loan officers won't know. They'll say, oh yeah, we can definitely do that loan. You get to underwriting, the underwriter says no.
Like, we can't do that. And then you're already halfway into a transaction and you could lose your earnest money, or you have to refinance, put more money in or something like that. And then it ruins the whole deal after that.
Yep. Perfect.
So
find a loan officer who has the ear of an underwriter and can get those questions answered and factually answered before you ever get under contract. Let's see. I guess when you get your loan officer, you got to figure out what what purchase price you can qualify for. So that's depending on your income. Also, the 2-year requirement for this, that's assuming you already have had a previous job that you've had for 2 years. So the requirement for using income to qualify for a purchase is that you've had to have that job or been in a similar work field or industry for 2 years. And the fun thing about college degrees is that if you're in like a degree for engineering, as soon as you graduate and you start a job in engineering, you're automatically qualified, because that time you spent doing the degree, as long as it's in the same field as your new job, you have spent the 2 years.
Yeah. That's what I like as well. So like fresh out of college, you can buy a house because they'll get your transcripts and be like, oh yeah, you've been doing and studying business or engineering, and this is your same job, but in that same field, so we'll qualify you.
Yep, exactly. So that's a good point. Good point to know. And then after you know what purchase price you qualify for, you'll need to know kind of what you need to fix, whether it be your credit score, maybe your debt to income ratio is too low, maybe your income is too low and you can't reach the price that you need for the market that you're in. Like here in Colorado Springs, like average homes that are house hackable quality are kind of going for like 400s-ish. And so maybe it's hard to qualify for that. And the big thing about debt to income ratio is it's calculated that you want to have twice the monthly income as your monthly debt, like responsibility that you have to pay for, right? Which means that if you are able to increase your income, it's twice as effective at increasing your DTI as decreasing your debt. So you have two options, like you can decrease your debt and you can increase your income. Increase your income is more effective. I don't know, like if you have some, like a piece of paper and a math and you can write it down, it's because you have your income on the top dividing it by your debt. Yeah. So if you double this, your overall debt to income ratio after is twice as high as if you changed one of the bottom numbers. Sorry,
so would this be better for someone to try and like find a side hustle to increase their income, or to just get a higher paying job to increase their income?
That's the thing you'd want to ask your loan officer. So most of the time it's better to increase the income on the current job you have, because if you start a side hustle that's unrelated to the current job industry you have your W-2 in, you can't use that income to qualify unless you've been doing it for 2 years, which makes it really tough. So it's better to either ask for a raise or take on more hours or try to start overtime, but you've got to make sure that that's consistent income. You can't say, oh, I'm doing overtime for this week and that's it. The underwriter would not accept that. They have to say, hey, you have been doing it for 2 months, and I've got to see paychecks for 2 months showing that you are consistent doing that overtime.
But for side hustles, though, that is good to save up for the down payment. So you can have your side hustle for the down payment side. It just won't show up for getting approved for a higher purchase price.
That's a great idea. Yeah, that's a great point for sure. Because not a lot of people don't have like a down payment saved up. Like most down payments on 400 something purchase price, 5% is maybe around like 20K-ish. So a lot of people just don't have 20K in the bank, and that makes sense. Side hustle will be a great way to pick that up. Let's see. Also, when you're talking to loan officers, try and find banks that have specialized loan products, which is kind of a big deal. So my loan officer worked for Academy Mortgage here in Colorado Springs, and they had a product for a while called the Academy 100, where they would finance 100%, no down payment. If you were, if you were a first-time home buyer, so it was a big deal.
What other like rules were around this, or like?
It was similar to FHA. Yeah. So if you could qualify for an FHA 3.5% down loan, you could qualify for this product. But it was just specifically that was something they were doing, and that they were just trying to get, more people into their loan products, into their loan flow, and familiar with them. Because if you buy with them for your first home, whenever you buy a second home later, you're likely to use them again because you know those people.
How long was that lasting for? Because doing like that's basically a 0% down like VA loan that you're basically being able to do.
Right, and it wasn't for VA people, right? It was great. Yeah. And so that was a pretty big deal. That ended when we first met Randy. It ended like a month after we met him. So probably like 3 years ago.
Dang. So were you able to use this?
No, we weren't able to use it. But it was like he kept talking about it. He's like, "Oh, we just had this, but now it's just gone." And I'm like, "Oh, now you tell me."
Dang.
It was pretty funny. But another one is that MacU product. That one was a big deal. 10% down for a non-owner occupied property was a big deal for investors. So it's always good to call around. and talk to different, most of the time, credit unions, like local credit unions, will usually have more interesting loan products, and they won't be advertised on their websites. So you can't just Google around. You actually have to
Okay, you
call
have
the
to
loan
call them.
officers. Yep,
Hmm.
because they'll have these.
Is one of the other products I know of is like a 10% down like vacation home. So you could do it for a short-term rental. You have to just live in it for I want to say like a month or 2 weeks out of the year.
Oh yeah, yeah, like
Uh,
second home loans. Yeah,
Yeah, second home loan. So then you can still do the 10% down. You just have to live in it, and it's probably ideal for like a midterm or short-term rental type property, something furnished.
yeah, for sure. That would be a great. I think do they have to be like 500 miles away from your current primary residence to count?
Yeah,
There's
I
some other
think there's a
restriction about distance in there that we couldn't do.
yeah, distance does have a play into it because if it's like right down the street, and it's like how can we really qualify this type of
Right,
thing?
that's not a vacation home. You're like right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. All right. Step three is to source your down payment. So yeah, good option for that you said was, get a side hustle, work on
Hmm.
getting that extra income in your pocket and save it up, right? Reducing your expenses is a good way to add more money to your savings over time and save up that down payment. We've had a couple of ways that we've used in the past to sort of get like a pseudo 0% down type of thing.
Hmm.
So I can talk about those things. One of them was using like your retirement account. It's not really 0% down
Okay.
because that's money that you have, but you honestly don't have access to that until you're 65. There
Hmm.
was like a COVID regulation that came up recently that said you could make a hardship withdrawal from your like 401k
Hmm.
under the COVID rules if it was used to buy a primary residence. And so
Oh.
you're able to make a withdrawal early. You get taxed heavily on that. Like it's still at a
Hmm.
disadvantage. But if your
Hmm.
retirement plan is income from rental properties, then you
Hmm.
don't really need your 401k as much. And so it's better to
Yeah.
use that. At least we decided it was better for us to use that as a down payment on a house. That would make us rental income for retirement.
Hmm. Okay.
The other one is that you can use a gift from an immediate family. So my dad has like an investment account that he uses. And I asked him if he wanted to invest with us, like give him 8% return or something was really attractive for him because it was better than what his portfolio was returning. And it worked.
Hmm.
The numbers for us worked really well on something like that. So we're like, oh yeah, we could definitely do that if you'd like to do that. The thing is, when you're talking with your loan officer and your underwriter, you got to make sure that because it's a gift, you're not allowed to have a written agreement saying that you're going to repay it because that's debt. A gift is
Yeah.
not considered debt. So you can fully intend to repay it and fully intend to give your dad back his 8%, but
Hmm.
you cannot have a contract saying that you do that. And you can't be, I guess, wanting to do that. Like he can't expect that right away. So you got to make sure that your dad
Hmm.
understands, like, hey, this is a
Yeah.
gift. We're using it for the down payment. You can't expect me to return it, but I
Hmm.
intend to pay you 8% later, right?
Hmm. I did that as well with my grandpa when I bought my duplex. We did a gift and worked it out where like, yeah, I will pay you back. We're not gonna write anything in
Yeah,
like a contract, but we have a plan just that we've talked about, and I pay him back monthly
yeah.
from it. So it worked out really well.
Yep, that's a really good way. People don't even think about that much, but yeah, grandparents and older parents usually have some sort of savings account or investment account that they're working on for
Hmm.
retirement, right? And as long
Yeah.
as you have a history, I guess we've got a 3-year history of investments now, so my dad trusts me. 2 years
Yeah.
ago, he would have been like, "No, what? That's ridiculous." Yeah, but now that we've got a history, he's definitely willing to do that, and we've been talking with him
Mhm.
a bit here and
One
there.
thing with like older like family members is they have like a time limit of like, yeah, we can do this, but it can't be like more than 10 years. Like they want it back within like less than five type of thing
Oh, that's
because
okay.
they just want to use their cash for, they're seeing like how long they have left in life at that point. So
Oh,
that's
that
one
makes
thing that
sense.
to consider is when you are talking with family members on that your goals and their goals are going to align in that aspect.
That makes sense. Yep. You got to make sure that
Mhm.
you can fulfill that fake balloon that's put on it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
The last one, which we thought was pretty creative that we did, we talked about Teslas a little bit before you and I at like
Mhm.
different meetups, right?
Yeah.
We got an unsecured loan to pay off our Tesla. And the Tesla
Okay.
at the time was worth around like 35,000. We got an
Mhm.
unsecured loan from Lightstream to pay off that Tesla, right? And so the
Mhm.
Tesla's all paid off. And then basically what we did is when we had our loan officer was aware of that new debt because we had a new loan, but it was unsecured.
Mhm.
So Lightstream does not have the title for that car, which
Mhm.
means I can sell that car and still have the loan available under my name. So The
Yeah.
loan officer was aware of this new debt, and it still fit our debt to income ratio. But we were able to say, and with the underwriter's approval, say, I've got a buy offer from like Vroom, right? We pretty much put the car up on Vroom and said, hey, they're going to buy it. And we got a guaranteed buy offer from Vroom for this amount in cash, saying they're going to buy it next week while we were under contract on a house. And so we were able to take that buy offer signed by Vroom and say, here you go, underwriter. And they're like, okay, that is cash. And they equivalent, like said, that's equivalent to cash for your down payment. And we were really surprised. We're like, oh, geez. Lightstream, I don't know if they're still doing this anymore, but they're a loan product that's based on credit. So we had really high credit and really high income at the time. And they funded us in a day. They gave us 35 grand in our bank account the next day after applying for it. It was absolutely insane, like really crazy.
Yeah.
Never heard of that before, but somebody on Facebook mentioned it because we were in a bind. We're like, I need down payment money, but I also have to pay for repairs, or not repairs, like renovations that we're doing on our current property. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And somebody just like Lightstream in the comments, and I just blew past it. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Okay, trying to find answers. And later, when we had nothing else, I ended up Googling it and just doing an application, and just thought it's never going to happen. Did an application, the money was there the next day, and I'm just blown away. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so that was fun. Yes, so you can sell a car if you have it paid off and it's worth enough money. You can sell a car to get the cash to do your down payment, which worked out pretty well for us.
And then, so were you were down a car? So you said one car at the time. Did you have any challenges with that, or you just kind of dealt with it? And
not too bad because it was like right in the middle of COVID times. So I was working from home, and that was pretty much it. We only needed one car, so it was fine. Oh, there was a time where I didn't have a car, about a month, because we had to close on the new property before we could buy a car. We actually only had one car at this time, and we sold it, so we had 0 cars. Luckily, the house was up the street in that student rental neighborhood, and I would take my one wheel and kind of one wheel back and forth anywhere I needed to go. We would have groceries delivered. Yeah, we borrowed a car from our parents for like a week. And that was pretty much how we made that work. And then once we closed on the new house, then we were allowed to do a new car loan and then buy another Tesla.
Okay, awesome. So it worked out really well at the end of. What was the time frame of this for you total? 3 years?
For doing that one purchase. Sorry, that was when we were about our second property.
Yeah. Okay, that was your second property. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Let's see. So secure your down payment. So there's some creative ways I guess you could do that. Unsecured loan. Big point. Step 4 was to analyze and find your rental properties. So you got to get good at, analyzing your deals. That's a big thing that they tell you all the time on Bigger Pockets and all sorts of any other investment avenues, right, for knowledge. Learning how to analyze it. I personally use Deal Check. It's a free app on my phone for Android. It's probably on iOS also. Where you can go through and input all of your rental expenses. They actually import all the property data for you. If you click the import button, it'll grab it from Zillow and grab all the property tax history for it. So it tells you how much it's going to cost on property taxes. It estimates property insurance and different things like that. It also estimates rental income, but it's just standard long-term rental. It's not by the room, so it's a lot different from what I do. Yeah. Set up your property on there and it spits out your numbers and you're like, oh, great, this is my cash flow. I've got all my expenses on here. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've always just done it like myself, just on Bigger Pockets using their calculator and punching it in. But if I never knew that there was a app that can like just do it all for you. Is it accurate, or are you ever like, oh, I would change these rents for long term, even though you are doing?
I always change my rents. Yeah, I always change the income because I'm doing it rent by the room. So I would do it based on what my experience is in that neighborhood. Yeah. So I'd update that. And then our expenses, you can put in the expenses for like utilities and stuff. You can do customize, make a whole list of whatever custom expenses you want.
Okay.
Just do it that way. Yep. And so we do that. And it's worked out really well for being free. I use the Bigger Pockets calculator as well, but I think I ran out of my free uses and I don't have a membership. And so I was like, hey, this app is free and it lets me do as many properties as I want. Like, this is fine. So I just did that.
All right. So once you analyze your deal, what would be the next step?
So you're analyzing your deal. The big part is to get comps for how much you think it could make per room. So while you're house hacking, especially if you're single, you're usually going to live in a single room. And so you want to know how much you can make renting that out to other roommates, right? So that's the big deal for this I guess, method. So we look on Facebook Marketplace, we look on roomies.com and Roomster. And we look all over the place in the neighborhood where we're looking to buy, or maybe the city that we're looking to buy, and we try and figure out, okay, which place, has the best room rates. And you can look at what people are paying. You can see exactly what the ads are up there, and you can see how long those ads stay on the market. Like if there's a room for $1,200 a month and it's never getting rented, that's too high. If you see one pop up for 800 and there's messages all over it and people want it, then you're like, okay, that's hot. Yeah.
What tends to be like the happy medium for what room rentals go for?
For student rentals next to UCCS, we're seeing about $750 a month for shared bathroom rooms. That's including utilities and internet. Private bathroom rooms can go from like $850 to $950 if you have a private bathroom. And like fully contained studios are like a big deal. People love those. Like with their own separate entrance, and they have no roommates at all, just one bedroom, one bath. Those, I know that the like the apartments, the official student apartments that are nearby, they're putting those up for like $1,695 a month.
Oh my, that much?
It doesn't include utilities. It's insane. Yeah.
Dang, wow, that's got a lot. I was thinking like 1,100, 1,200 for like a studio.
You'd think, yeah, but this is fully furnished, and ready to go. We did one of ours. We built out one in our triplex. We built out a single studio with a separate entrance, and we rented it out to a travel nurse for like $1,800 a month, fully furnished, and it was ready to go. I think we could probably do a student in there. Probably about $1,400 a month would be comfortable for a student if you could find somebody with the right budget. Yeah.
Okay.
But people really want their privacy sometimes, and they really
well, I mean, after house hacking for a little bit and sharing bathrooms, it makes sense. The older you get, you're just like, I'm done having roommates. And
right, exactly.
The kitchen's a big thing as well. People have their own ways of doing the kitchen. Some people love to soak that dish for days, thinking it's going to do something.
Forever,
and I'm like, no, get this out of here immediately, clean it, and stuff like that. So it's a big challenge.
That was a big thing in all of our properties. If we're having roommates, there has to be a dishwasher, and it has to be new.
Yeah.
It has to like just get everything off those dishes.
Yeah.
Yep, because people hate having dishes in the sink. That's the biggest complaint, honestly, I get with roommates. His dishes are in the sink for months. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And it's like they don't even put them in the dishwasher. It's just in the sink. Like you just put it in the dishwasher instead of in the sink, and then we can wash it, and it's fine.
Yep, exactly. So you should be good to go. I guess another thing when you're analyzing and finding properties is, honestly, if you're new to it and you can afford it, get an agent who is an investor who has done house hacking before. I mean, it was a big plus for us. The agents we've used in the past were not investors, but I had one who was smart enough to be able to run like property analysis and kind of figure out cash flow generally. He didn't put like repairs and maintenance expenses. He didn't put CapEx in there, capital expenditures in there, which kind of made the difference. So he would find a property and be like, look, it's an amazing deal. And then I'd run the actual analysis and be like, that's amazing. But I get where you're going. Yeah. So absolutely find an investor. And when I say you can't afford it, most agents will say that hey, it doesn't cost you anything because the seller's paying it. But there is a practical cost to it if it's not a financial cost. Like if you don't have an agent on your side when you're a buyer, your offers are automatically more competitive because the seller doesn't have to pay your buyer's agent fee. So they make more money in the sale as if they sold to somebody who does have an agent. So there is a slight practical cost in that your offers are not as competitive at the same asking price. The other thing that we've started doing now is that now that I know enough that I've learned from my agents in the past, now that I know enough to do it on my own, is that I will ask for the seller to buy down my rate now. And it's funny because it's 3 points to buy down your rate. And sort of the average general commission you get for a buyer's agent is 3%, which is the same cost. So most of the sellers I've been talking to were like, yes, we will buy down your rate 3% because you don't have an agent, and it's the same for us. And you're like, okay, cool, good to go.
Yeah, and then the numbers look even better for what you were looking to do for your
exactly, property. And so, and especially when rates are so high right now, like around above 8%, oof, that's tough. So getting that down to 5, the last one we analyzed, we were able to get down to 5.125%, and that's it's pretty nice, and it didn't cost the seller anything extra, and it didn't cost us anything extra, and so we're buying at like rates from a year ago when other people aren't. So it does.
How recent was that purchase for the 5.125?
The analysis, we didn't get it under contract, but we did the analysis for it like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, so it was pretty recent.
Okay, gotcha. Really fresh.
Yeah, super fresh. Yeah. We were looking at an FHA one for that because we don't have another FHA loan. I guess you can only have one FHA loan.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
For some reason, FHA, it's also cheaper to buy down the rate under an FHA loan than it is under another conventional loan. So that's something I learned
Uh-huh.
recently. Yeah.
Hmm.
Get a good loan
Interesting.
officer. They will help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing, I guess, when you're looking at analyzing rental properties and finding one is you got to have one with a good like house hackable setup. And so we
Mhm.
talk about this a lot in the house hacking meetup when people do their presentations, like what are you looking for in a property? Like there's a huge list of things that I look for in a property. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of it is because I'm in a student rental neighborhood, I'm renting by the room. It's how many potential bedrooms can I fit in that house comfortably? Well, everybody's okay with
Mhm.
living in that space, right?
Yeah.
So how many like 10-foot by 10-foot spaces can I carve out with an egress
Mhm.
window and a closet? Because those are the requirements to permit a bedroom here in Colorado
Mhm.
Springs. Yeah. And so,
Mhm.
and have like comfortable walkways and hallways and things like that. So every time I'm
Mhm.
looking at a house, I'm always like taking my laser measurer and just measuring the walls. Is this 10 feet? Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay.
What's the most bedrooms that you fit into a property?
Right now I've got one with 6. We have 2 houses with 6 bedrooms.
Mhm.
And I think we're going to try and put 8 in one of them because we're thinking about doing a garage conversion.
Oh,
It,
really? Okay.
it has like almost like near infinite street parking across the street from it. And
Mhm.
so because we don't need the garage for parking anymore, I'm using it right now
Mhm.
for my storage shed for all my maintenance supplies.
Oh,
But if
really?
we get another house to, or build another storage shed somewhere else, then I can open it up, turn it into a
Mhm.
garage conversion. That'd be great. And we can fit 8 in it.
Yeah.
But
Wow, that'd be awesome. If it was it, how many bathrooms would it be?
that was the thing. So it's a big requirement is you got to have 1 full bath for every 3 bedrooms. And
Mhm.
private baths don't count. So you got to make sure,
Mhm.
oh, if I just look at it, oh, it's like a 6-bedroom, 2-bath. Oh, that's perfect. But one of those is a private bath, doesn't count. Like,
Yeah.
because it can't be used by everybody else, right? So you
Mhm.
definitely got to add more comfortable bathrooms.
Mhm. So are you planning to add another bathroom into this one or?
For this, yeah. So we're able to fit
Okay.
like a really small bathroom into it, but have like a tiny shower. And we have,
Okay.
because the garage is like connected to the laundry room, they actually had like
Mhm.
a utility sink with hot water, cold water, and drain
Oh,
right there
okay.
on that wall. So we're able to
Uh-huh.
put the bathroom right there connected to the wall, and it's
Uh-huh.
like perfect setup for it. I'm really excited. But
Well,
yeah,
there you go. So, yeah. Crazy how
yeah.
that works out for you.
As you're walking through the houses looking at it and you need to add a bathroom, make sure you know where your water lines are and where your drain
Hmm.
is. Yeah, because you got to make sure
Yeah,
it's in the right place.
those are big, especially for if you're gonna like in the basement if it's not remodeled and you just want to
Yes.
put bedrooms and bathrooms in there, just to put fill it out as
Yep.
much as possible. That's always a good thing to look for.
Yeah, there is a company that makes a special drain pump that can
Hmm.
help pump a drain if you're not like, if you're especially in our basement level, if you want to
Yeah,
put in a bathroom, you have drains only go down.
yeah.
And so if you want to put a bathroom in a basement level and there's no drain under you, like no foundation drain or anything, or no access to a drain anywhere nearby, and you don't want to drill
Hmm.
through a ton of concrete, you can get
Hmm.
like a drain pump. And it's made specifically to put bathrooms in certain places where there's no drain access. And so you
Hmm.
can get a plumber to install that and then pump it out into or upstairs into another drain that goes out through your main house drain.
Hmm. What would the cost of that be?
They aren't too bad. I think the ones we were looking at were a couple $100s, but most of it's labor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Most of it would be a labor additional to that. And so it's like a
Hmm.
couple $100s to have a bathroom where there wasn't one is not that
Yeah.
bad.
So what's
But
next? What someone should be looking out for on their deal
yeah,
analyzing, walking properties?
house hackable setup is a big one. You kind of need to find something that's set up for a separate living space. If you're single or you have like your significant other but no kids, usually you can stay in one room and it's okay. Um,
Hmm.
One time when I was living with roommates, I lived in master suite and that was fine because I had a girlfriend at the
Hmm.
time and it was cool. So we were like, oh, we'll just stay in this master suite and we're good. And
Hmm.
then, but now that we've got kids, that's not possible. We can't share all one room,
Yeah.
and toddlers are very loud. So yeah, you need a house hackable setup that fits your family status. So a lot of these are, for me right now, it's basements. So if they have a basement that has a walkout,
Mhm.
that's perfect because that means usually a
Yeah.
separate entrance. And maybe I can put like a gate door on the backyard gate and go around, just park in the
Hmm.
driveway and walk around, then that's fine. If it doesn't have a separate entrance in the basement, we've also found ones that have like immediate garage access at the top of the stairs for the basement.
Okay.
We can
Hmm.
usually put up a wall like almost like a U-shaped wall to kind of contain that hallway so that it's all contained. So I go up the stairs and I go directly into the garage and I don't have to see anybody and nobody has to see me. And then that's a house hackable situation.
Yeah, those ones are cool because then you can basically create an easy private entrance to the basement
Yes.
without having to cut into the foundation,
Yeah.
excavate into the ground. That's a lot more work. But when there's just a garage and you put 2 walls up on each side to make it pass through, works out so much easier.
Yeah, those are great. We recently started looking at those because there was a couple houses that I said no to and then looked back at the floor plan later and be like, oh, we could have made that work.
Yeah.
Biggest thing is keeping my kids out of other people's space because my 2-year-old will just go run off into somebody else's room while we're like trying to get into the car or something. Yeah. So it's like, it's all got to be completely separate. Yeah. So yeah, that was a big one. Making sure it's got a different basement. A lot of times we're looking for a permanent wet bar. If it has a wet bar in the basement, we really like that because then usually we can finish the kitchen and call it good. What we've found out here in Colorado Springs is that they had an old rule that said like a second kitchen, like if you're single family zoned, you can't have 2 kitchens in the property, right? Because that makes it 2 separate living spaces and 2 units. The kitchen is what defines the unit, and what defines the kitchen used to be it's a hard gas line or a 220 volt electrical connection for a stove. So if you were able to put in the stove, then you'd count it as 2 kitchens. We were able to sort of get past this with one of our properties. We put a kitchen in the basement because it already had a permanent wet bar. So we just extended the water a little bit, but we added a grilling range into it, like a really nice Thor, like high-end 6-burner range, gas range. We were able to find a conversion kit to propane for it on Amazon and just put a propane tank in the cabinet underneath it because it didn't have an oven. It just had the range. Yep. And then put it underneath there, find all the fittings, and it works great. And people love it. Like, there's like the best thing ever. And the propane tank lasts us like 4 to 6 months, depending on how much people use it. And it's really cheap. Yeah.
Dang, yeah. And
So
you just have them like
go ahead.
on spare if they need to replace it?
Yep. I always have a spare just in the basement ready to go, and I'll swap it out for them. It's included in the utilities, so I'll just swap it out for them.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
That one, the inspector was saying that as long as it meets the original permit requirements of the original wet bar, then you're good to go. Because we didn't install a new gas line and we didn't install a new electrical line that was 220 volts, and it met the original requirements of the original permit, so we didn't have to get a new permit for it. So that's how we got it covered.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that worked out really well, where you could make a really good value add to the property to increase rents. But you didn't have to make any huge changes with permits and pay a whole bunch of extra money either.
Right, exactly. So we were house hacking this one. We were living in that basement and we wanted a nice kitchen for ourselves. So we built that kitchen while we were living in it. And now that we moved out, the students love it. They love having 2 kitchens. Because that's a 6-bedroom house. They love having 2 kitchens. Even if the basement one is small, it's still really nice to have their own space and not having 6 people using 1 kitchen, because that's kind of hard.
Because 3 is a lot, and then once you double it in 1 kitchen, it's just a mess. And what about refrigerators? What's the rules with that?
Like the rules for requiring refrigerators?
Yeah, because I always thought that after 5 bedrooms, or if you have 5 people living in a property, you have to have another refrigerator. So if there's 6, then you need to have another refrigerator.
Because you just can't fit everybody's stuff in there, right?
Yeah.
So we have another refrigerator in that kitchen in the basement, like a full-size fridge. The one upstairs is really interesting. We actually got a commercial fridge off of Facebook Marketplace. And because we had like 4 roommates upstairs that are all sharing that. Basement has 2 bedrooms, upstairs has 4 bedrooms. 4 people all sharing 1 fridge got filled up really quickly, and there was not enough room.
Yeah.
Plus, the original fridge stuck out so far that it like closed off the whole like kitchen. It's like a galley kitchen, so it goes straight down. Yeah. Close it all off. You can't see anything. You can't get roommates walking through there. If somebody has the door open, everybody has to wait. Like, it sucked. It was terrible. So we got that commercial fridge that has like the windows that you can see in, so you can see all your stuff without opening the windows. It has like a stainless steel cooktop that's like 6 feet long. It's huge.
Nice.
It was great. Yeah. The problem is it's a little bit noisy, but I always, when I'm doing my tours, I say, hey, this is how loud it is, and they're usually okay with it, and it's been fine. So like when the compressor kicks on, it gets a little loud, but yeah. It's been doing great. People love it. I do have to have a chest freezer like in the laundry room though, I added that. But the students also love that because they get more space to store their frozen food and stuff in there.
Especially when Costco is right near UCCS in that area
Exactly, like
as
right across
well.
the street. Yeah,
Students go and just bulk up because I do the same. I just pack up on Costco and put it in the freezer. But we only have one freezer, and so when two people are putting stuff in the freezer, it gets super jammed that the third person can't do anything.
right. Yeah, it gets rough for sure. Yeah, commercial fridge. I recommend it if you can find a cheap one. This one was kind of beat up, like it was really dinged on the surface, but honestly, it's a worktop and nobody minds, and it looks great and it works great. Yeah,
Okay.
so I recommend that. Let's see. Another thing I look for in properties is creative income potential. So this is a really big one that I've started doing more recently now that things are more expensive. I need to find other ways for that property to start making money besides just the rooms. Some of this could be like renting out the garage spaces to some of the students. If someone prefers the garage or they don't want their car dinged by hail, then they'll want the garage. A lot of times their parents will just be like, hey, I need my kid's car in a garage and I'll pay extra. I don't care how much. And then,
Yeah.
Okay,
All
yeah.
right.
I mean, absolutely. I'll move my stuff out. Don't worry about it. Yeah, and so we'll do that. Renting a shed on the property if you've got the space. I'm looking at more properties with bigger land lots now, more recently, because something my dad does is he built an RV pad on the side of his property and he rents it out to a friend of his. And it's like, yeah, so if you've got the land space and you're able to get like that hookup for the sewer, like a sewer clean out near the RV pad and maybe a water hose and stuff, and the big like 220-volt extension cord for the RVs, that's what my dad has on his property, and so that's what his friend pays for, is that full hookup experience. Yeah. So
do you know, because I looked at a duplex recently and it had like a side spot, like huge like pad area, perfect for an RV. But do you know much about what it would cost to add hookups for the RV or any of those other?
Oh, that's a good question.
expenses?
I know that a lot of home inspectors can add that sewer clean out because it's part of the home inspection process, is if they can install that clean out so that they can get the scope in and inspect your sewer lines. I think $600 was what I was quoted at, but that was like 2 years ago for that process. So it also depends on where your main sewer line is, if it's anywhere near that pad. The rest of it is just getting a hose. We lived in an RV for like a year while we were saving up to buy our first investment property. I would recommend getting a heated hose because everything freezes here in Colorado.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, getting the sewer line, a heated hose. And then the electrical line, they just make really big, like huge 220-volt extension cords that you can get that can run to, you might have to install like a dryer outlet near your garage or electrical panel to get access to it. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So not a whole lot, just those three things are the main.
The cords are kind of expensive. Yeah. They're like $115 for like a 20-foot cord. Like they're pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But not as much as somebody digging new power lines, right? Yeah. So yeah, so not so bad. I guess other creative potential is a garage conversion. We've been looking at that. If you have enough parking on the space. So the key is that you have to have enough parking for everybody in the house if you want to take out the garage. So that's kind of a big deal. Doing a garage conversion. If the property, a lot of the older properties here in Colorado Springs don't have a garage. And so if it has enough land to add a garage, that's a big plus for me. Because if I can add a garage, I can also add an ADU on top of it. And that's more rental space.
I like that of doing the garage with a rental unit on top. It's a little bit more expensive for the build especially from scratch, but it is really cool and can be an awesome rental.
Yes, and those are really high demand because people love that privacy, being separated from the house. If you can do a detached garage, and they really like that. The other thing that we've been talking about earlier is doing a dome, like a geodesic dome build. I'm looking for properties more that have enough land on their space to do a 20-foot geodesic dome. There's a company up in Denver here called Harmony Domes that sells these. And if you get the chance, I recommend stopping by their showroom and walking through one of those because they're amazing. they're so high end. It's like a high end apartment, like a studio apartment. It looks so nice in there. They've got the high end like luxury vinyl plank flooring. They've got the high end shower and bathroom and sink and a full kitchen in there. Like it's ridiculous.
So it would be great for like a short-term rental type property.
Yes, like if you were going to do an Airbnb, super unique. I haven't seen any domes in Colorado Springs yet. I'm still trying to find the funding to build mine, right? Because it takes cash to build those. I can't. Like it's rough. it's hard to get financing. So my idea for the future in the next couple months is to try and HELOC one of our current rental properties to get the cash to build out some domes on one of our properties that has the land space for it.
Okay.
Yeah. The big thing about those here is I called the planning department and asked them, like, what are the requirements for this? Like, what has to be permitted? And what they told me was that as long as it's on like a deck, if you plan on putting it on a deck that's attached to the house, the deck itself has to be permitted. And that's another thing that you want for your like insurance purposes. You want to make sure that if anything happens to people while they're in this structure, that it was on a safe, like something that was certified safe where it was permitted. The deck structure itself was certified safe. So you're able to put the dome on top of it and like furnish it out almost like it's a full apartment, and it looks great. The only thing was that the utilities to the dome itself have to be temporary. You have to be able to like disconnect them at any time. So after living in an RV for a year, I knew all about all sorts of things that you could do with this. Like you could have a water pump and a water tank, and exactly how an RV works, where you hook a hose up to it, fill that tank, and the water pump can put pressure to all the sinks, and it looks like a real house. But it's all temporary because you can unhook that hose. You could run that 220-volt electrical line to charge a big battery that runs all your lights and stove and the hot plate and everything, and you can run all that stuff. And because it's temporary, it doesn't have to be permitted. Same thing with the sewer line. You got to get that sewer line. You can get the flexible sewer hose and get a clean out installed next to it. And then you connect that, and you can disconnect it whenever you need to, have your black water tank there, and you're good to go. We estimated costs for this to be about $39,000. But we've estimated rental income, because I had another one that was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath was at $1,800 a month. We said, okay, income's $1,800 a month, cost is $39K. We can make this work. Like that works really well if we can get a loan for it and make it happen.
You potentially, I guess if it's only 39,000, just get like a business line of credit and like and just put it on that and say it's like interest free for 12 months. Get it up and running, and then within those 12 months start getting it where you can pay it off.
Oh yeah, if you had a business line that was big enough. We did have a $25,000 credit card that we used for renovations recently that was 0%, and we just paid it off like last week. I was so excited.
Okay,
it's a big event. Like we had it for 15 months with money on it. We just finished paying it off.
Awesome.
Another part about those is that it wrecks your credit for those 15 months. But as soon as you have it paid off, like your credit jumps like insane, and then you'll be able to buy and do new ones. But if you can get a business line, that would be a great way to do it. I was trying to do another Lightstream loan for it. Lightstream seems to only like you having one of their loans. Seems like they will not approve you for two. It's like, doesn't matter what your income is, they don't like it. So we got to finish paying off our original Lightstream loan before doing that again. But I think HELOC is what we're looking for, because it has the best rate terms, the best repayment terms, and that honestly equates to cash flow in the end for those properties. When you do a dome like that, there's no appreciation in it. It does not add value to your property unless it's commercial and you're selling it for income, like you're appraising it on income, right? So there's so it's really all cash flow, and so cash flow is what counts there. So that's something to keep in mind. And also, I don't know if many people want to buy a house with another dome on it unless they're also into Airbnbs or doing investments.
It's hard to find the right buyer for that.
Right, exactly. It might be tough. Let's see. Last thing we're looking for is probably no HOA. That's been a big deal for us, because renting by the room, HOAs do not like cars in the driveway, and they don't like cars parked along the street, and they don't like lots of, I don't know, sometimes you get a lot of noise. For student rentals, we had a couple partying last year that was a big deal. And so we've got newer students this year that are much more focused in studies and stuff. So that's something I look at when we do that. But HOAs make it tough. You can't do short-term rentals. You can't do a bunch of things. You can't do a lot of those creative income, possibilities that you could do in a house with no HOA.
Gotcha. Is there another step other than or something that they should specifically look for after no HOAs?
I think the location's good, because you can't really have a house out in the middle of nowhere for renting by the room. You've got to find a place that's nearby a lot of either young professionals or a military base, or a lot of single up and coming people, like new people in their careers that are looking for just living with roommates. We've had a lot of military roommates, and they've been amazing. Probably my best tenants. They've been great. They've been super great, but they also have a lot of connections. So if I'm looking to fill more rooms, they have a lot of friends, in their social structure where they're able to recommend people for other rooms that are just as responsible as they are, and they always pay on time and they take care of everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Why did you end up deciding to go with the rent by the room strategy?
In college, I was an RA, like a resident assistant. So I was kind of the one running the dorms and organizing all the students and making sure everybody gets along and mediating all the problems and sort of solving all the issues. And then kind of directing who rooms with who based on their personalities and how they get along well. So I already had all that experience. In college, I also ran a house. Like after I moved out of student housing and stopped being an RA, I rented a house from a guy and I filled it with my friends. Like I already organized the roommates, got them all. I signed the lease myself and I got them all to pay me and then pay him. So it worked out well. So I already sort of had that experience. And that's kind of how we are set up. So I was really comfortable with working with college students. So after graduation, we bought our first house in 2016. We bought it as a house for us, Mackenzie and I, because we were married and we're looking to have kids. We got like a 3-bedroom house with an unfinished basement. Looked to buy that and have kids and be ready to go. After a year, we were trying to have kids and we didn't have any. And so Mackenzie had a friend at work who was looking for a place. And we're like, oh, okay, well, I've got an extra room. We're not using it. So you can hang out there with your dog and pay us rent every month. So that was cool. So we did that for a bit. After a while, the house was too expensive. And we're just like, my savings account is not going up. After 3 years, we realized this is not working. Something's wrong here. My savings, my 401k is not growing enough for us to retire. Our savings is not going up. We're just burning all our money here. And I know that it's going into, some of the equity in the house, but it's like, this is not sustainable. Like it's not happening for us. And after 3 years, we still didn't have kids after 3 years of trying. So we're like, we don't need this big house. We're going to sell our house. So we sold it. And surprisingly, over 3 years, it had inflated an insane amount from 2016 to 2019. We were able to get $70,000 out of it after selling it. Which was awesome. Insane. Yeah. So we bought a camper and we lived in our parents' backyard because they live out in Black Forest, got a bunch of land. They had all the hookups. And so we're like, all right, let's do it. Oh, man. So we tried that life for a year while we saved money because the RV was paid off. So we saved all that money to buy another house. And then at this point, I was, looking up ways. I was really big into YouTube and looking up ways of how to build savings and retire, right? Build for retirement. And when you search that on YouTube, you get bigger pockets real quick. And then, oh man. And then I saw Brandon Turner do a video about Burr analyzing. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We can do that. I could fill rooms. I can do this so fast. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And that was it. So then I started just studying just podcasts all day. I lived in Denver and I had an hour-long commute. So I would drive up to Denver and during my hour-long commute, I would listen to a Bigger podcast, 2 of them every day. And it was just just so much knowledge. Just, oh my gosh. Yeah.
So why did you decide to buy an RV instead of use that 70,000 towards your down payment? Or did you just not have that idea?
No, yeah. We didn't know at the time. We were just like, we need the cheapest housing possible. We're going to do an RV on our parents' land because it was basically free. We paid them for electricity. Basically. Yeah. So I put a meter on the electrical line and we monitored how much we were using and I paid them for electricity. Yeah. So then that was that was it. And then after that, when I learned, I was like, oh man, we need a house back. We should have rented out our old house. And then it was like, the big mistake, but it's like, that's okay. We can't really undo it. We'll find a new one. So that's when we found
did you sell the RV eventually and use that money for another property?
Yes. Yep. Exactly. We sold the RV and used it to buy our first rental property. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. So before we wrap up here,
do you want me to finish out the 2-year plan, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll try and do that real quick.
Plan before we wrap up. Yeah.
Okay. So after you find your perfect property, you're putting in an offer, you're getting the buying process down, you're talking to the listing agent. A lot of times, if you're not using an agent, the listing agent can do the contracts for you, your offer contracts, if you ask them nicely. And then you just say that you want to be their customer. So they're not actually representing you as their agent. They're not, they don't have a fiduciary responsibility to you. So they could do the contracts for you. And a lot of sellers agents prefer that. And I like it because I get a direct line to the seller's agent. So whenever they get an offer, they tell me. And I say, hey, I'm willing to compete. I'm willing to be the best offer. And because they're writing the offer, they tell me instantly.
Yeah.
get your leases after you finish your purchase. You got to get your leases. Go to those different places, Facebook Marketplace, Roomster, Roomies.com, and then get your leases all set up. Interview people so you got people that you're comfortable with living with. Manage the property is your next one. I use Thumbtack for maintenance now, just putting out maintenance requests because I don't have a maintenance person. But it would be good to find a good maintenance person that's cheap but also available who can come out. And then that's it for there. And then 12 months later, you start shopping again. You can do it sooner if you have like a special family circumstance, like if you have a kid or if you get married and you need to expand to a bigger place. You can do it sooner with a special letter. Under the Fannie Freddie rules, you can do that, but it's very unlikely that they will accept it, and unless you're going into a bigger space and you got all these preparations for it, right? But you can always talk to your people,
When I did mine, I wrote a letter and said that I was moving for work, and they.
That's another thing.
So
if you get a new job somewhere else, that's a big one.
Yeah.
If you need to move before that year is up. Yep. Oh man, I didn't think about that. That's a great one. While you're owner occupied in that house before you move to your new one, definitely do a HELOC if you're planning on using HELOC for like a down payment on your next property. Do the HELOC while it's owner occupied because you get much better loan to values, much higher loan to values. Like we talked about earlier, there's a 100% one here in Colorado Springs. Do that while you're owner occupied, and if you can before you move, get roommates ready to take over your spot. So you can get people, like I did this with my brother and his friend. They were living in our garage for 2 months before we moved, while we were under contract and while we were shopping, because they were ready to sign a lease and take over our previous spot, like the section of the house that we were living in. So they were ready to go. So if you can get that set up ahead of time, then you can have a lease signed while you're under contract and show that to your lender and be like, look, I'm ready to qualify with this income.
Yep. I've also just had friends just sign a lease that saying that they were going to move in, and then once like it actually happened, we just like ended the lease, and I actually found someone else.
Oh, you found somebody else? Yeah. I'll usually, I know you can do that. I'll usually find somebody who's actually able to do it and who wants to do it. A lot of times we can get, like relatives or my brother in this case, who's like, I'll definitely move into that and I'll pay for it if you don't find somebody. And so it's good to have like a backup flexible person like that.
Okay.
But the main point is like he can afford it and he would be willing to move into that if we couldn't find somebody. Also, the previous house, the income on the previous house cannot give you excess income beyond the mortgage that it costs within the first 2 years. If you haven't been doing rental properties for 2 years, you can't use the excess income as qualifying income. It can only just cancel out the mortgage and that's it. Which is a big thing that I learned. And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean I can't use all this extra cash flow to count as qualifying income? They're like, no, you can only cancel it out and that's it. So we're like, oh, well, how do I buy bigger houses? And like, well, you can't until after 2 years. You've been doing rental for 2 years. So that was a big thing. Also, if you're going to buy your next rental property and you're not going to own or occupy that next rental property, get an ADU permitted on your current house hack, because you cannot use the house hack income while you're using it as your primary residence unless it's permitted as a second unit, like you have an ADU on it. So it was a big thing our lender talked to us about. We tried to do that while we were living in the upstairs of the property and renting out the basement. You can't use the basement to counteract the mortgage on it on your qualifying income unless it's actually 2 units.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was a big deal. So while you're living in the house, get it ADU permitted and get your HELOC early.
Okay. Good tips to recommend. I never got a HELOC on my first house hack because I wasn't thinking about it at the time. I was just like, all right, get the next one. It was my next thing. I never really thought about putting a HELOC on it to get better rates and be able to pull out more as well.
Yeah, that's where we're at. And now we're thinking about we have to move back into our first property to get a HELOC on it. So that's it. You do one house, stay in it for a year, do another house, stay in it for a year, and then you purchase your third property. And if you've done your numbers and analyzed your cash flow properly, you should have made sure that those properties fit your fire number by the time you have 3. So if you divide your fire number by 3, you want to make sure that each property cash flows by that number. So if your fire number is like $1,800 a month, that's what you can survive on with no job, then you want to make sure each property cash flows at $600 a month.
All right. And on that third one that you're living in, will that one, I guess, would you still want that one to cash flow while living in it? Because it's hard to do that in Colorado Springs, or at least just make it so you have no housing expense.
That one's very difficult to do, right? So a lot of the houses that I'm looking at, they cash flow if there's an Airbnb.
Mm,
If so when I'm owner occupying, I'm usually doing an Airbnb, because in here in Colorado Springs, it's really easy to get an Airbnb permit, like a short-term rental permit, while it's owner occupied.
mhm.
And so any house that I'm usually owner occupying, I have an Airbnb running at the same time. So cash flow is generally higher while I'm living in it. Well, at least enough to counteract like me using one of the spaces,
Yeah.
right? And so if you can get that last one to at least generate $600 a month with an Airbnb in it, then you're good to go. But yeah, it
Mhm,
is pretty tough to find a place
mhm,
that you're still in and still cash flowing 600.
mhm. Gotcha. Well, awesome. Well, there you go. That's the, was it 2-year plan? The
2-year plan.
three
Yeah.
properties, 2-year plan, and you can retire and be financially free at that
Yeah.
time.
Right by the
So
room.
last
It's really
question.
strong. Yeah, go for it.
Last question for you. What is a motivational quote that has inspired you throughout your real estate journey and your life experiences so far that you think other people could benefit off of when they get started in real estate?
Oh yeah. So we talked about this a little earlier. It's kind of a cliche, but it's definitely there's nothing to fear but fear itself. So a big part of my process while going through these properties was like, is there anything that I'm afraid of here? Are there anything that's going to build up that fear and make me not want to do this? And usually it was, what if I can't find renters for this? And so I would, you know, cancel those fears with knowledge or doing the research and figuring it out. So with that fear, I would go out and do all the research on how many people are looking for rooms. Tons of people all over the place. If you find the right avenues and do the right research, you can find that the demand is very high for single rooms. And it's like,
Mhm,
okay. Also, another part of that was that I usually never buy a property that I cannot afford without roommates. And
mm,
your lender will also help you with that, because usually it's within how much you can afford with your normal job. If I
yeah.
can't afford it without roommates, that makes me uncomfortable, and I usually won't do it.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
So make sure you can cover all your fears, and usually your fears, it's you telling yourself that there are some things that you don't know. There's some empty knowledge there that you got to fill, and there's some bases
mhm,
that you got to cover before you're secure in this deal, right? That you want to do.
mhm. Yeah. I agree. That's an awesome answer. And I definitely had that same fear as well when I was buying my first property. And mine wasn't where I could still cover it because I always brought on a co-signer. So like
Oh
me and
yeah.
my co-signer covered, but if it was just me, I was not going to be able to cover it.
Oh
So I
boy,
was
yeah.
really scared about my fears of not getting a renter in there. And it was always like I could cover it for like 2 months. I'm like, okay, if I go 2 months, like I've got to be able to find someone by then to find a renter, or maybe I just will keep lowering the price and I have to pay a little bit more. So
That's
that's
it.
kind of how I thought about it as
Yeah,
well.
2 months is a great safety buffer to have. 2 months
Mhm.
would make you feel super secure. It's very easy to find a single roommate in 2 months for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. So Zach, where can people find you if they want to ask you questions about rent by the room?
Let's see. We started a new website called Upscale.Homes. So you can find me there. Currently redirects to a Facebook page with all of our roommate listings for student rentals right now. But eventually
Mhm.
it'll be a full website once I get the time to build it out. Yeah, we'll get there.
Mhm.
I build websites for a living, so we'll get there someday.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Zach. Thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot, man.